All right. Hey, I want to get things started today with an interview, if you will, or a conversation, maybe would be more appropriate with Jake Schumann here. And of course, Jake, if you would, I want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself, where you're from, where you practice, what's going on with you, how long you've been in practice, I think would be relevant as well. And let's do this.
Yeah, thanks, Doc. Appreciate you having me on. Been a wild ride between you and I. I mean, we met when I was, I think, in trimester number one or two at Parker when you were just investing into students. So, man, have a ton of gratitude with that, and have stayed connected. And so, appreciate how much you invest into our profession and to men like me. So, yeah, I'm from East Texas. So I grew up right outside a little town called Greenville, Texas, which is just a few miles away from where you practice. And yeah, my family's been in Greenville and the surrounding area for 90 plus years. And we run a little pest control business there. And yeah, so I got to be around kind of a little bit of small business owners for my whole life, and really got to understand what that looks like as far as from a sacrifice standpoint. And man, it's all on you kind of thing. And so I've been very aware of that my whole life. And so, I mean, I'll lead into that later when we talk through the business stuff, but that's relevant for me because I got to experience some of that growing up. But had a great life, great family, great parents, two sisters, and just raised us really, really well with a lot of integrity and Christ-centered background. So that was awesome. Very thankful for that. Graduated chiropractic school after going to the University of North Texas for undergrad. Graduated chiropractic school in April of 18, and then started my chiropractic practice in Prosper, Texas, just north of Frisco, in December of 18. So we're coming up on 2 years here in a few months.
That's nuts. Number one, thinking you're taking me all the way back to you being in try one, then that you haven't even come up on 2 years yet. But I got to give a shout out to Greenville. It's crazy how many people are from Greenville, Texas, or around there. Of course, most notably, other than you, would be my wife. So I have a lot of props to go to Greenville. Of course, TJ's there. There's a lot of good that comes out of that town, which is, to me, nothing like Prosper, where you are currently, but it's great nonetheless. So, jumping into this a little bit, so we knew each other at some level, and been introduced, and you came right out. You've always been a go-getter, and I know that was true about you through school, and how you went into practice and everything you did. And you can shed some light on what you did, because it's always been full on. Now, what, other than us kind of being acquaintances, I think would be more appropriate. Like what really brought you to look at Gamechanger? What wasn't working? What wasn't working that you thought, hey, I'm going to go check out what Buffington's got going on and see what this is all about?
Yeah, I think just the trust that I had in you initially. You're right. I mean, more acquaintances is probably the best way to put it. And I got to kind of see from afar just through the relationship that Drake, your son, and I had while in school, and just getting to walk through some trials with him, and also observe from afar too, like some of the work that you were doing outside the practice and outside, like, community of chiropractic. Like that didn't go unnoticed. But it was also like a level of curiosity, like, okay, a guy that I know that has excelled in practice, has a great family, not without challenges. Like we can all acknowledge that. Uh,
Damn straight right there.
yeah,
That's like, I mean, obviously Drake has some well documented challenges
yeah,
of his own, and you are also somebody who was there for him on multiple occasions and pouring into him, and helping guide and lead him through some of those days. So I thank you for that. As a side
yeah,
note, I was also observing that from afar.
yeah. I mean that, and just knowing those like details, I think is relevant because like I saw somebody that, like, man, when most people are coasting, you were like diving in a little bit harder, and like refining yourself like to a deeper level. And for me, I was just like, it always just sparked curiosity. I was like, what is this? Like, man, this dude should be like on an island somewhere all the time. But you just, you were content, but also like just knowing that there was like probably a little bit more that you were called for, called toward, and just leaning into that. And I just, I have a firm belief in that, like, just being aware of something is not, excellent. What is being excellent is being aware of it and then acting on it and actually trying to create the impact that goes along with that awareness. It's kind of like the word potential. What is potential? It doesn't really matter much unless you act on it. And so just seeing you like put in work beyond just like, a couple decades of just serving, North Texas. I mean, that's huge. Pouring into students too. There was just another level that you were taking it to. So I was observing that from afar. And then, right before I started my office, you and I connected again. It was November, and you were going to do your first event. And I've never told you this before, and I really haven't said this out loud, but I had about $11 in my bank account at your first event, and I really wanted to go, but I didn't have I just didn't want to. I saw value in it, and so I just didn't want to be like, hey, like, I need help on this, which I probably should have. But my truck had just broke down. I was a month from opening. My practice got delayed 3 months from getting to open, and I was just in a really tough place. And so I wasn't able to attend that event. And so I don't remember what I said to you, but it was something along the lines of, "Hey, man, just with all of the build out and contractors and stuff here this weekend, I'm just not gonna be able to make it over to Rockwall." So that was part of the story. But then after that, I just observed a couple of buddy of mine that were within the group and within the mentorship program, within the Gamechanger program, and just saw just exponential growth in them personally, like within the man over the next year. And that very next event, I was in a completely different place, was able to get the doors open, get to serving people, and was able to then be prepared to go invest in me again. And, we can talk all about like, systems and procedures, because, you and I talk about this a lot. Like, I'm a part of a mentorship group called AMPed. And one of my best friends is another Dr. Michael out in Golden, Colorado. And he started an incredible systems driven mentorship program, but that's not what this is. And that's not you can get guidance in that. You're an open book, and we all appreciate that when it comes to running our practices. But like, for me, this isn't let me just shift my systems in my office, because that was already working. So you asked me what wasn't working.
Yeah.
The other three categories in my life weren't working. I was completely drained. The office had experienced some, success on paper,
Yeah.
I was speaking at seminars and stuff. And I mean, that was, cool. But at the end of the day, like, I was a very tired, kind of lonely dude that was just like, I'm not filling the tank appropriately. And so this is not going to be sustainable. And this is not going to be a longevity driven practice or a longevity driven life. And I could quickly see how, like, that burnout that a lot of, successful businessmen talk about, just like, it was coming. And so I was like, this is a pivot point that needs to happen real quick. And so in September of 19, was able to attend my first event, and you guys brought it to me in Frisco, which was awesome. And just hit the ground running from there, and just tried to start filling the cup in the other three categories, and not just be a businessman, not just be a chiropractor, but a guy that invests in himself so that he can serve more abundantly.
Yeah. Well, I had no idea. Of all the times we've talked, I had no idea that in 2018, had I known, obviously I would have had to do something, because I just would have. But that's crazy to hear that. It's also appreciated that you see that investment and that value in the way that you do. I don't think that's always captured by a lot of people, and they kind of want these certain things, but they say they value them, yet they don't put their kind of money where their mouth is. And then they wonder how people don't invest in their care or people don't invest in that in their own offices. They never really connect the dots that that's the way things work. But, and, you've come out of the gate, running. And so you were successful. So when you did come to that event in 2019, I mean, you were already doing extremely well, by most standards, crushing it. There's no doubt that AMPed has tons of great systems that work. And I know that's true for you and some of the other guys in the group. Is, bottom line, systems, there's multiple systems I think that work, but you guys, again, top of the top, doing great things. I remember what you said to me that day, though. What you had kind of shared with me, some of those challenges. but you called me over and you stood on the aisle there. I don't know if you remember this. And you said, I need proof of concept. And I was like, okay, proof of concept. And it's one of the areas that's really challenging to prove. I'm like, well, I can point to all these guys in the room and I could point to a lot of things, but it's challenging to prove a concept because it takes some time. So it was a great question that you put to me. And I love that's the way you work. I mean, you're an X's and O's guy. And I'm like, all right, well, let's do this. And you leaned into that and you kind of stepped forward and, came along with this, if you will. And I always appreciated that. But that question sticks in my mind, or that statement. Maybe it was more of a statement, but there was a question underneath it. So I'm always going, okay, how do we show that this works? How do we prove that it works? And we say that all the time in the facts. So what would you say changed? So all of that going on, again, you had just the wherewithal as a man, as a human being, to know, hey, this isn't going to work for me, which I'm impressed by that at your young age, that you can pick up on those things and not be a guy that's older like me before some of those things stick. But what was the biggest shift for you?
Oh man. Well, it's a great question. Yeah, I think when we ask patients, it's like, where do you want to be in 3 months when we do our first progress reevaluation, or where do you want to be in 2 months or 1 week? Where do you want to be? They sometimes look at us very blankly too, and I think that a lot of the guys that'll see this will probably be like, I don't know what it is. Like, I'm not going to be able to just put my finger on it, and that was why, like, this very open-ended question that I gave you, like on that first day or statement, whatever it was, like, I already knew what I was going to do. Like, I knew a year prior that this was something that I wanted to investigate, but like, proof of concept has to be proven daily. And we know that. We call that, like doing the work, so I think I just needed a system to create some sort of daily work regimen that invested in all sections of my life. And that just like, this was just like the fit there, it was like, hey, we have daily systems that are going to create, an accountable regimen for you to like get that compounding effect. I talk to patients all the time about, if you're going to get 30 adjustments, but you do that over the course of 30 years, you're not probably going to see any change in your spinal column, and nor are you going to see a lot of change in the nervous system and those nerve fibers that are exiting at those levels. You're not going to see like a lot of change. But if you come to somebody that does this every single day of their life, and they're able to like piece it together, put together a plan of action for you, and they're like, okay, in 42 days, we need 31 of these. And then I need you to do this when you leave. I think in 30, 45 days, we're going to look up and be in a radically different state. And we communicate that every single day. And yet sometimes as men, we don't realize that there's a compounding effect that happens over the course of a very specific amount of time at a very specific rhythm throughout that allotted piece of time. And so that's how you kind of communicate it to me. It was just like, you may want this different feeling, or you may want this different state or this different outcome. But we have to have kind of those checkpoints in between, or what we call, targets in between, to get us to that long-term outcome. And sometimes you don't even know what that outcome is going to look like. You just know you want to be in a different place. And so I think filling the buckets is what means a lot to me, is that, I felt like this bucket was very empty. This one was like 20%. This one was like 40%. And this one was probably 80. Probably the business bucket was higher. But like, you can't keep 80 going if this is all at 0, 20, 10.
Right. Well, I love that. We've had conversation as well about the man behind the door. You brought that up at our last event, and you were standing there like, the man behind the door. It's like, you're the guy who makes it happen, whether you are the provider, but even if you have other docs, you're still the guy, that's making decisions around your team. and those pieces, as well as you're still the guy that goes home and, it's going to go home to Johnny in your case, that you're still the guy that's going to show up for your kids. You're still the guy that has a relationship with God. You're still the guy. So if you're not, if that guy's bucket is empty, where does everybody else that's impacted go from there? And I love that you always picked up on that. They're just, again, so many things. And I love that you've taken it in and you've worked hard to follow the daily, the weekly, the monthly, checkpoints, the setting the quarterly targets, and really just moving yourself forward, right? Because it's so easy. And I've talked about this a lot, but as a chiropractor, it's easy to get stuck in the provider mode where you do that all week, and then you kind of go home and have to catch your breath, especially when you're seeing the number that you see, and then you do it all over. And the next thing you know, the months and the years and even the decades in my case go by. And if you're not really careful, you look up and you're like, wow, nothing. It wasn't that it was bad. It's just that nothing really shifted any further. It got to a certain point.
Though. Like, that's it. Like you just said, like what I was trying to articulate. It's like you get to see like your years of practice and your years of experience. Like you talk to me, and this is what was like, okay, this makes so much sense. You're like, I'm going to take all this and I want to compress that, package it, and give it to you so that you can compress the time that it needs to get to that state where you understand. And like, for me, I was just like, all right, let's go, because like, I don't want to wake up in 10 years. Like I'm 28 right now. I don't want to wake up in 10 years and say, yeah, we saw a specific benchmark for a long period of time. I hope that made some impact.
Right.
I want to make sure that, I want to make sure that, it's not just the practice. I want to leave a legacy for my family. I want to make sure that, we shift healthcare to a certain degree. There's a lot of us here in North Texas that are buddies, and, we want to make sure that, and when we, pass this on to our kids, or, I've got a soon to be brother-in-law who's going to go to chiropractic school now. Like, I mean, this is going to be great, but I don't just care about it from a chiropractic standpoint. I want to make sure that, he's creating a sustainable life to push the needle. And that was it right there. Like, I don't want to wait 20 years to have to look back and like say, okay, how did that work? And where do I need to shift now? I want to compress all of the knowledge that all the Gamechanger guys bring into one room and say, how do we compress the amount of time that it takes for us to get to that level of understanding?
Yeah. Well, I love that, because I believe it or not, the time we're recording this and doing this, yesterday was 26 years. Yesterday was 26 years officially. Now I was licensed just before that, but that's when I officially, had all the financial reins of my practice, was October 15th. And so 26 years, and I look at you at your age, which still blows my mind. I'm like, 28, are you kidding me? Because I see you as a colleague and a peer. Yeah, my my oldest son is 1 year younger than you. So, but here we said, I'm like, man, by the time Jake is 30, by the time Jake is 32, by the time he's 35, can you imagine? I'm like, that is the accelerator, and bringing that down. And then when you can spin that off, so it's not only great for you and what you're going to impact, but you spin that off everywhere else. I believe it gives the profession a lot of traction, because the profession has been around and it's going to stay around, but it's also rides the waves of people somewhat, and people pulling a lot of weight. And if you don't address that, I mean, I've seen some guys literally give all of their effort, their entire life to profession, 50 plus years, serve in that way. But then at the end, it's like, what was left? And it was literally like this ride and fall. And I want more people to go out on the top of the wave, like on top of the ride, whatever that is. So I feel like I'm getting all philosophical here with you right now, but we tend to do that some. So yeah. That was really good stuff. Well, so I'll make this a little more fun now. All right, we'll get off of that to some degree. Like, what's really your favorite thing? What do you like the most about Gamechanger and the guys?
Yeah. So one, I've gotten to create like some really like lifelong friendships with guys that are in different seasons of life. And, I tease you guys all the time because I don't have any grays yet, but I mess with you guys, but y'all mess back. It's the funny part about it is I get as much heck as I give, but it's just fun, man. When would I have ever, connected with some of the guys that I get to learn from? I just don't know if I'd ever met the Farleys and the Rickmans and the Philip Pauls. I mean, even though he was right down the road from me for a long time, it's you know, just having guys that are hungry and are excited to pour into you, but are excited to learn from you. But more than anything, like guys that understand, because I'm in a community group with guys at my church, and to a certain degree, like they know me, like they know the core of me, and they know like some struggles that I've had this week and some challenges that I have long term and some things that I did well this week, but they don't necessarily understand what it's like to unlock your practice door, like walk in and get ready to see hundreds of people that are going to be asking something of you, not only emotionally and not only physically, but like even spiritually in a lot of ways. And it's just like one after the other. And like you're giving a piece of your energy to them a lot. And then you're also absorbing mostly negative energy, like let's just be honest, it's mostly negative energy. And there's some positive things. I mean, testimonials and good wins and victories. Like I'm not saying there's not a lot of that too, because there is, but our primary job is to solve a problem typically, and that's a lot sometimes. And it's just awesome to have a bunch of chiropractors. And I'm not saying this group has to be all chiropractors, but a lot of us like providers and business leaders and guys that have employees and are leading teams that just get it. Right. They get it and can have those critical conversations with you that like, hey, like this is like what happened to me this week, and like it's just wrecking me. Like why? And they can understand, they can relate because they've been there, or they can at least experience like, oh, I can understand how that could have happened because I'm in kind of the same seat. We talk about seats in our office a lot, but we're in a similar seat in life. Being a man, married, potentially almost married, whatever. Seeking that, wanting to have kids, wanting to create a legacy, wanting to have a business, but more than a business, having an impact through our business, and just being in a similar seat that can speak into the lives of others. That's probably the biggest thing that I think is the most fun. And we do these things. I like the tactical pieces too. You know me, so like the Friday mornings, and I've already seen like a few of them ding this morning. Guys checking in, 3 minutes or less, cut to the chase, like what's working, what's not working this week. And then just seeing the comment threads on there of guys like genuinely going back and watching all of the guys in the group watching each other's videos and saying either encouraging or, hey, this is what I would try, or this is what I'll do, or man, let me know where you're at. So many times we just like coast so much and like nobody knows where we're at. They just think it's okay because you're showing up every day and you're adjusting some people and you're talking to your team and you show up and you have dinner with your spouse or whatever. And it's just like, nobody really knows where you're at. And I think that that's a big piece to what we do. And I love the Friday check-ins because I get to see somebody on camera, just being real, just being transparent.
Yeah. Well, and those are always fun for me. And feeling that connection with the guys. In today's world, of course, we can do some of it virtually, and we're actually bringing out some skills, that we do everything with a purpose. So even while it's great on the connection piece, it also makes you a better communicator. You get a lot more concise. You're doing it on video, and when you can communicate on video, it's a lot easier in person. And so I don't know that I've ever really said those things out loud to you, but those are the things that are going on that people don't understand. It's almost like, why does this daily stuff add up to actually create a result? Why does this weekly stuff add up to actually create a result? Because in the moment you're like, oh, it's just doing a video or whatever. Well, it's not. It's much more. So it's those pieces. I'm glad you brought that up. And it is cool. I enjoy it too, to see the guys pulling for each other. I think of it like a team in the sense where when I was in sports, there's a mutual respect. Everybody knows the grind. Like sometimes it's a grind and everybody understands that. You mentioned the seat aspect. If when you've been on a team, what everybody's doing at practice, and that when everybody's running sprints, and that's what kind of develops some solidarity, because you're like, okay, I know what this takes. I know this piece. And I don't know that it's often ones get talked about. You kind of open the door for me here is I call it the green mile effect, but because you do have so many problems thrown at you, because you're not only having their physical problems and their health problems, but in that, the cascade effects on their marriages and their families and all those things too. And pretty soon that can feel like weight. I always get that vision of the actor in Green Mile, you know, when he like exhaled all of the evil. Now we don't have to make it evil, but it's like, that's what I think sometimes that guys, especially, because the way I grew up, maybe even the way you grew up, you know, part of the culture is like to just ingest that and ingest it and ingest it. And of course you can pray and lean on God for a huge piece of that. We're just trying to make some tactical ways where you get some of that out, and then the fellowship that allows some of that to come out so that you can just be a better version. I mean, it's really all about, I don't intend to hijack this, but you're really triggering some other things in me again, Jake, is like why we do what we do and why we do it the way we do it. So, and you are on point, leading the charge. You made a big impact like you always do, both in your own life, and I'm seeing that. I'm excited to see that for you and Johnny and in the future and be part of that. Also seen by the guys that you've encouraged to check out the group or to come into the group. And I guess that would be my final question for you today. What would you say? Because you obviously said the right things to a bunch of them to have them come and just see it for themselves. Not everyone is a fit, and that's okay. But what could it be for them? What would you say to somebody?
Yeah, I talk a lot about like self-responsibility, and the guys that I run with, like, I mean, truly run with, not like, you know, I'll jump on calls and stuff with guys or text guys or, you know, see them at church or see them around town or whatever. And those guys are great. But the guys that I run with, they're called to a little bit more than just, you know, be passive through life. And I think that the guys that I've invited, it was very strategic because it was like guys that I wanted to be more involved with, that want to consistently, daily, like reject passivity. And I think scripture calls out passivity in men a lot because we're the leaders and we're called to be leaders. And I don't know where you stand, like spiritually, whomever's like watching this, but the fact is, like, I know you're called to more too. You know, we're called to more than just wake up and float. You're called to do more. And, you know, just from a profession standpoint, if not us, who's going to do it? You know, we're currently ranked 37th overall in health, 43rd in life expectancy. You know, we're last in infant mortality. We've got the best healthcare facilities on planet Earth. You know,
Right.
Whatever we're doing is not working, you know, as a country. And so, if not me, who? And so I think that if we're not growing our capacity as individual men every single day, we're not going to lead movements well. And the movement can start in your home. Like if you're not preparing yourself and filling your cup individually, your kids are going to see that. I know Johnny, my fiance, sees that. And the cool thing about it is, and I'll just end with this, is like, based on what I've done over the past year and making sure that, you know, the office was doing well, and I have the systems and procedures that make that go, through Amped and great mentors, and through you even consulting in on that, which is awesome. But then I needed the systems that were going to create sustainability in me so that I could fill that lane, but the husband lane, the friend lane, the community group lane, the, you know, service role in my church, the employer, the provider, the dad, maybe one day. I mean, the list goes on. And so it wasn't just here. I just think that we are called to make sure that we have the capacity to invest in others at our full potential.
Well, I don't think there's anything more I can say after that other than, man, just thank you for being part of the game. You know, the game is life, right? We talk about it like it's a game, but thanks for being part of it. Thanks for what you bring individually, but also just collectively to the group and pouring into the men like you do in other areas. You do it here also, and I can't thank you enough for that. Thank you for your time today, and I'm excited to see what we are going to be able to do moving forward from here.
Yes. Hey, no, as we always say, every day's training day.
Amen to that. Thanks, brother. And apparently my dog thinks that this show is over. Thanks for your time, Jake.
Bet, brother.
All right, bye.